Tonight, is there a killer on the loose in Colorado? A star wrestler disappears from his college campus. The mystery deepens when his body's found days later hanging from a tree miles away. Cops initially say he committed suicide. Nothing to see here. His parents said that's ridiculous. The facts don't back that up. So if he didn't kill himself, then who did?
So how does it feel to start the match off with a win? I mean, you go out there, no one else has wrestled yet.
It's a lot of pressure at first because you set the momentum through all that duels. So it's good to get out there and get a win for the whole team, get motivated and pumped up.
Tragically, that was Damian Hurd. He is now dead. He's a champion wrestler from Texas enjoying his freshman year of college at Western Colorado State. His parents say he has no history of depression. Growing scrutiny towards the cops tonight as they say they're not pursuing any suspects. Why not? Wouldn't that be priority number one? Here's a good lead for cops that points away from suicide. Damian reportedly got into a fight at a house party earlier that night. Have cops talked to the other people involved in that fight? Also suspicious, Damian fueled up his car just before he vanished. Now think about it. Do you fill up your car with gas if you're about to go hang yourself? I don't think so. And he scheduled a date with a woman for the next day. None of that seems to point to suicide. So what did cops base the suicide comment on? And were they too quick to jump to a conclusion? We reached out to local cops. We haven't heard back. Straight out to my very special exclusive guest, Gary Hurd, Damian's father. Gary, I'm so sorry for your loss. My heart goes out to you and your family. Tell us about this call you got from police and how they moved right away to suicide.
My son went missing on the 29th. His body was found on the 2nd, Wednesday, about midday. Police officer from Gunnison Police Department contacted me, said that they had found my son's car. I then asked if they had found my son. He said they in fact did find my son and that he was hanging and that he had committed suicide.
Did they give an explanation as to how they concluded suicide?
They did not, and I asked them on the phone if they had found a note or there was any indication that would lead them to believe that, and he didn't elaborate any farther on it, and it just stayed like that. They never gave me any reason of why they would think that.
Well, there's so many clues that suggest this was not a suicide. Damian had just set up a date with a female classmate for the next day. He had no history of depression. He fueled up his car at a gas station right before he disappeared. The battery was taken out of his phone. That's interesting. And his car doors were locked. So why would you lock your doors if you're going to commit suicide? That also doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I want to go to our panel for a second, but stand by, Mr. Hurd. Gary Silver, criminal defense attorney. I mean, cops have to follow some kind of guidelines. They can't just say, oh, yeah, it looks like a suicide. Yeah. Brian.
Yeah, Jane, you're talking to me. I think you called me Gary. Listen, just because they're the police does not mean they get it right. I make a living on police failure to investigate and inconsistent investigations. My private investigator, for example, has gone to crime scenes days, weeks after a case supposedly goes down, and has even found a bullet lodged in a wall that the police missed. What this guy's got to do, what the family has to do, is go find the best private investigator that they can afford and scour that crime scene. You might find something that may crack the case. That's the art of criminal defense. I do it every single day.
Have to.
And that may work here.
They shouldn't have to.
I'm sorry?
They shouldn't have to. I mean, who can afford their own investigator?
Of course they shouldn't have to, but
Right.
listen, when you're being ignored by law enforcement,
Right.
you may not have an option.
Right, and the
and
police,
frankly,
right.
I represent people who are ignored by law enforcement.
No, I do
Happens
too.
every single day.
I do
Well,
too.
let me go back to Gary Hurd. Gary, your son had a fight
Yes.
earlier on the day before he disappeared. On the day he disappeared, he had a fight hours earlier. Have you been able to find out? Tell me about that.
Well, there was actually 3 physical altercations. There's one that took place earlier in the evening, Saturday night, and because of that particular fight, it spilled over into later that night and maybe even early into Sunday morning, where he was attacked inside the house by two other men, and they both have recorded statements at Gunnison Police Department stating this, and that one of them grabbed him from behind and drug him into a laundry room. And that's where things get really vague on what actually took place in that laundry room.
Well, given that, Laura Marino, attorney, how can they just jump to the conclusion of suicide? I mean, to me,
They shouldn't.
It's a disgrace, Jane. This is disgraceful police work. Not only, as Brian said, should that crime scene be investigated top to bottom, but every single person who attended that party. There was a party where the first altercation took place. Every single person at that party should be interviewed extensively. I mean, how they can just close the book because the guy's hanging. And I'm so sorry for your loss, sir, but you set up a scene and use a rope and the police wash their hands of it? That's ridiculous.
yeah, there's plenty of people who've been hanged that didn't hang themselves. I mean, you can't jump to suicide automatically. Now, Damien's death certificate says the cause of death was strangulation by hanging. Again, just because he died by hanging doesn't mean he hanged himself. Cops told Damien's parents it was a suicide. Now they're kind of backing off a little bit. They're saying, well, the investigation's active. But get this, they also say they're not pursuing any suspects. And additionally, they make it very clear that there is no danger to other students. So I want to go to Sierra Elizabeth on this. That to me smacks that maybe there's another agenda here. You know, I'm not referring to the university at all, but sometimes people feel a need to cover up for institutions in their area so that everything looks, oh, nothing to see here. We don't want to hurt business.
Absolutely. It makes it much easier for them, Jane, if this all just goes away. I mean, just anecdotally, I was a college athlete myself, and just knowing how much time college athletes spend with their teammates, their coaches, their trainers, the first place you go to after interviewing the people at the party is the people that he's with day in and day out. What was he talking about? What was he involved in? This just seems so shoddy and sad, Jane.
Gary Hurd, have you hired a private investigator?
I am talking with, had a couple of consultations with Pamela Mackey out of Denver, Colorado, and she has an investigative team, her and her partner. We have not officially retained them yet, but we are working on raising that money to do so, and we're close.
Find out about those fights right before he disappears. Find out about those fights. What was going on with all those fights? Our heart's with you. We hope you solve this.
Thank you so much.
We really do. Thank you. And come back when you learn something new.